impossible. I know. I struggled for years. Every class, every book, every sentence felt like a wall I could never climb. I stumbled over words, froze when speaking, and watched opportunities pass by because my English was weak. I thought maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe English was only for others. But everything changed when I discovered a simple method: learning English through short stories, daily practice, and embracing mistakes. Slowly, step by step, English stopped being scary. My confidence grew, my speaking improved, and doors I never imagined began to open. Today, I can communicate, share ideas, and inspire others. And the best part? You can do it too. This story is not just about learning a language. It's about turning fear into confidence, mistakes into lessons, and dreams into reality. Let me show you the path to learning English easily and quickly. Chapter 1. A Heavy Beginning. My name is Arif. I was born in a small town far from the big cities, where people lived simple lives. We spoke our own language at home, in the market, at school, everywhere. English was like a guest that visited only in books and exams, not in daily life. For me, it was never a friend. When I was a child, I thought English was like a tall mountain. I looked up, but I couldn't see the top. I had no climbing shoes, no rope, no map, just a thin textbook with strange words and confusing grammar. In school, English class was always the time I feared most. When the teacher opened the book and said, "Arif, read this sentence," my heart started racing. My palms grew wet with sweat. The words danced in front of my eyes, changing shape, laughing at me. I tried. Truly, I tried. The boy, go to school." The class burst into laughter. Someone shouted, "He can't even say school." My ears burned. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. The teacher frowned and told me to sit. That day, and many days after, I learned not English, but shame. At home, I hid my English book under my pillow. Sometimes I opened it late at night. I looked at the words and whispered them softly, hoping they would sound better in the dark. But they still betrayed me. They refused to stay in my memory. Slowly I began to build a wall in my mind. I told myself, maybe English is not for me. Maybe English is only for smart students, city boys, rich people. People like me are not meant to learn it. But the world outside kept reminding me of my weakness. On the shop boards, I saw English words I could not read. On television, people spoke fluently, and I felt like an outsider. On the radio, songs played in English, and my friends sang along with joy, but I stayed silent, pretending I didn't care. Inside, I felt small, smaller than everyone else. One afternoon, my teacher gave a short speech in class. He said, "If you want to succeed in life, you must know English. English is not just a subject. It is a key that can open doors to the world." I smiled politely, but inside I thought, that key will never fit in my hands. Still, there was a small voice inside me, quiet but steady. What if you could change? What if you could learn? I pushed that voice away for years. I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need English. But in truth, my dreams were slowly shrinking. I didn't know it then, but one day, life would test me in a way I could not escape. That day, I would realize how much English mattered, and how much I had already lost by avoiding it. That day was coming. Chapter 2. Dreams Broken by Words. The first time I truly felt the cost of not knowing English, I was just 16. It was the day of the school talent exam, a chance to represent my town in a regional competition. I had practiced for weeks, not with English, but with courage. I knew the topic. I had ideas. But then the instructions came in English. The exam paper felt like a wall. I stared at it for minutes. Every word looked strange. Every sentence seemed to mock me. My hands shook. I tried to read, tried to understand, but nothing made sense. Around me, classmates scribbled confidently. Their pens moved quickly. They understood the questions, answered with ease. I just froze. My mind raced and panic filled my chest. I wanted to ask the teacher for help, but my pride and fear stopped me. When the results came, my name was not on the list. I had failed, not because I lacked talent or ideas, but because I could not understand the language. That moment crushed me. I felt the sharp weight of my weakness pressing down on me like a stone. Later at home, my father looked at me silently. He had a kind face, but that day I could see his disappointment. "Arif," he said gently, "you are smart. You can do many things. But if you want to move forward, you must learn English. The world will not wait for you to catch up." I nodded, but in my heart I felt hopeless. I had always avoided English. I had believed it was too difficult for me. Now I realized how much it had stolen from me. Opportunities, confidence, and even my dreams. A few months later, another opportunity came. A scholarship interview for a good school in the city. My heart raced with hope. I prepared answers in my native language, rehearsed my speech, and dreamed of success. The interview started. The panel spoke in English. I froze. Questions that I had thought I could answer became walls I could not climb. The panelists looked at me with polite smiles, but I could feel their judgment. When I left the room, I wanted to disappear. I had failed again. This time it was worse than the exam. It was real life. My dream of studying in a big school, meeting new people, and changing my future vanished because of English. That night, I sat alone in my small room. My notebook lay open, full of half-finished English words I could not pronounce. I realized something painful. English was not just a subject. It was a bridge to my dreams, and I had been standing on the wrong side. I remembered my father's words. He had not forced me. He had only shown the truth. And now the truth hurt. It burned like fire inside me. I could ignore it no longer. I made a decision that night. Not a loud, proud decision, not one full of confidence. Just a small, quiet promise to myself. I will learn English. I will not let it take my dreams away again. It was the first step, but it felt heavy. How could I, who had struggled all my life, start learning now? The thought scared me, but somewhere a spark of hope flickered. That spark was tiny, almost invisible, but it was enough to light a new path. And that path would soon lead me to a method that would change everything. A method so simple, so practical, that it made English feel like a friend, not a mountain. Chapter 3. The Moment of Realization. After my second failure, life felt heavier than ever. I stopped dreaming for a while. I stopped trying. I walked through school corridors with my head down, avoiding conversations, avoiding questions, avoiding anything in English. One rainy afternoon I sat in the small library, staring at a pile of books I could barely understand. My fingers ran over the spines, feeling the smooth covers, feeling the weight of knowledge I could not reach. I wanted to give up. I almost whispered to myself. Maybe I am not meant to learn English. Maybe some doors are closed forever. Then something unusual happened. A new student joined our school that day. Her name was Sarah. She was different, confident, cheerful, and surprisingly good at English. But what caught my attention most was how she spoke. Not perfectly, but with ease and curiosity. She laughed at her mistakes, repeated words she didn't know, and never hesitated. I watched her from a corner. She picked up a book, read a short story aloud, and smiled when she understood. I was amazed. I thought, she's not from a rich city, she is just a student like me. But why can she do it? After class I gathered courage and approached her. Hi, how do you learn English? I asked, my voice shaking. Sarah smiled warmly. I don't try to memorize everything, she said. I read stories, I listen to them, I repeat them. Slowly, English becomes easy. Stories? I asked, confused. But I tried stories. I still fail. No, she said softly. Not hard stories, simple ones. Every day, a little bit. That's all. Don't fear mistakes. English is not an enemy. It's a friend. Treat it like that, and it will help you, not scare you. Her words hit me like a sudden breeze clearing a foggy morning. For the first time I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe it was possible. Maybe I had been learning the wrong way all my life. That night, I sat in my room thinking. The failures, the laughter, the missed opportunities, all of it flashed before me. And I made a decision that would change everything. I would stop memorizing long rules. I would stop worrying about mistakes. I would start with short stories, short sentences, and daily practice. I would listen, repeat, and speak, no matter how strange it sounded. It was not an easy choice. Fear still whispered, "You will fail again." But I answered back quietly, "I will try differently this time." I didn't know it yet, but this small, simple change, learning English through stories and practice, would unlock a path I never imagined. Doors that once seemed closed would slowly begin to open. That night, I read my first English story. A short one, no more than 10 lines. I stumbled over some words. I repeated sentences 3, 4 times. I laughed at my mistakes. And for the first time, learning felt alive, not painful. The mountain was still there. But now I had found the first step on the path. And every journey begins with a single step. Chapter 4. The Power of Stories. The next morning I woke up with a strange excitement. For the first time I didn't dread English. Instead I felt curious. I opened my little notebook and wrote down the first story I had read last night. 10 lines, 10 simple sentences. But to me, they felt like treasures. I read them aloud, slowly, carefully. I stumbled over a few words, but I didn't stop. I repeated them again and again. With each repetition, the sentences started to feel familiar. My tongue no longer twisted as much. My heart no longer raced as fast. Over the next few days, I discovered something incredible. Stories were not just words, they were magic. I tried reading a story about a boy and his dog. At first, I could only understand a few words. But the sentences repeated themselves, and the meaning slowly became clear. I began to imagine the boy running, the dog barking, the sun shining. Suddenly English was no longer a wall, it was a picture, a movie playing in my mind. I realized that learning English through stories was different. Instead of memorizing boring rules, I could feel the language. I could see it, hear it, and even laugh with it. I could speak simple sentences naturally, without fear. Every day, I added a little more. I read a story in the morning, repeated it aloud, and wrote down new words. I even acted out the dialogues, talking to myself in the mirror. I know it sounds funny, but it worked. My voice grew stronger. My pronunciation improved. Slowly, English started to flow from my mouth like water. The biggest surprise came when I tried to speak with my friends. At first I was nervous. My sentences were short. I made mistakes. But I laughed at them, and they laughed with me. No one mocked me. I realized that mistakes were not enemies. They were teachers. By the end of the first month, I could read and understand short stories on my own. I could write simple sentences without hesitation. I could even tell small stories to my younger brother, and he listened with excitement. That feeling, being understood in English, was like tasting freedom for the first time. One evening, Sarah came to my room. She smiled and said, "See, Arif? I told you stories were powerful. Words are not chains. They are wings. If you give them attention, they will carry you far." I nodded, smiling. I had begun to believe her words. I knew that stories were no longer just a learning tool. They were a bridge to my dreams. And the more I crossed that bridge, the stronger and more confident I felt. The mountain of English had not disappeared, but now I had a path to climb it. Step by step, story by story, I was moving forward. And for the first time I felt that maybe, just maybe, I could reach the top. Chapter 5. Small Steps, Big Change. After discovering the power of stories, I realized that learning English was not about big leaps or sudden magic. It was about small steps, repeated every day. At first it felt almost too simple. Just 10 lines a day, just a few new words. But soon I understood. Consistency was the real key. I created a small routine. Every morning I read a short story. Every afternoon I repeated the sentences aloud. Every night I wrote the new words in my notebook and used them in small sentences of my own. At first it took effort. My tongue stumbled. My memory failed. But I refused to give up. One day, I realized something remarkable. The words I had read yesterday now felt easier today. Sentences I had struggled with were now natural. I could even explain a story in my own words, slowly and carefully, without feeling lost. That small realization felt like climbing a small hill. But every hill climbed made me stronger. I also started speaking more. I talked to my friends, my younger brother, even the shopkeeper near my house. At first I was shy. My sentences were short and awkward. But every time I spoke, my confidence grew. Every mistake became a lesson. Every smile or nod from the listener became a reward. I began to notice changes beyond English. School felt less frightening. I could answer questions without panic. I could read signs, understand songs, and follow simple TV shows. Each small step gave me a sense of freedom I had never felt before. One afternoon my father saw me reading aloud in the courtyard. He smiled quietly and said, "I see the change in you, Arif. You are not the same boy who once feared English. Keep going." His words made me even more determined. I realized that big changes come from small, daily efforts. Learning English was no longer a distant dream. It was a part of my life. Step by step, story by story, I was shaping a new version of myself. I also discovered a surprising joy. Learning could be fun. I didn't memorize boring lists anymore. I laughed at the dialogues, acted out the characters, and even created little stories of my own. English became a game, a challenge, and a friend all at once. By the end of that year, I could speak and write in simple Englishes. I was far from perfect, but I had confidence, progress, and hope. I had learned that no matter how heavy a mountain seems, small steps repeated every day can move it. And that realization gave me strength for the next stage, overcoming fear. Chapter 6. Overcoming Fear. Even after months of progress, fear still followed me like a shadow. Speaking English in my room was one thing, but speaking in front of others, teachers, classmates, strangers, felt terrifying. Every time I tried, my heart raced, my palms sweated, and my mind went blank. One day, our school announced a short story competition in English. The winner would present their story in front of the entire school. My first reaction was panic. Me? Speak in front of everyone? Impossible, I thought. Sarah encouraged me. Arif, this is your chance. Don't let fear control you. You know the stories. You've practiced. Just take a deep breath and start. Her words were kind, but fear is louder than kindness. I spent the night rehearsing. I repeated my story over and over, speaking to the mirror, to my notebook, even to the empty courtyard. My sentences stumbled at first, but slowly they became smoother. I imagined the audience as friends, not judges. The next morning I walked on stage. My legs trembled. I held the paper in my hands, but my voice refused to come out. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and remembered Sarah's advice. Treat English like a friend. I opened my eyes and began to speak. At first, softly, then louder. My words stumbled occasionally, but I smiled at the mistakes. The audience was silent, listening. No laughter, no judgment, just attentive faces. When I finished, there was applause. Small at first, then louder. I smiled, feeling a wave of relief and pride. For the first time I realized, fear only disappears when you face it. That day, I learned a powerful lesson. Fear is not an enemy. It is a signal that something important is about to happen. The more I faced it, the stronger I became. I could now speak with my friends, answer questions in class, and even share simple stories with strangers. English was no longer something to hide from. It was a tool to connect, to communicate, and to grow. I also learned that mistakes were not failures. Every wrong word, every forgotten phrase, every stumble was a step toward mastery. I laughed at my errors instead of fearing them, and that laughter gave me courage. From that day on, I promised myself, no fear would stop me from learning, from speaking, or from dreaming. Each small victory over fear made the next challenge easier. And slowly, I was becoming someone who could face the world confidently in English. Chapter 7. Finding Confidence. After overcoming my fear, a new feeling began to grow inside me. Confidence. It started small, almost unnoticed, but each day it grew stronger. Speaking English no longer made my stomach twist or my hands sweat. I had practiced enough to know I could handle mistakes and keep going. It began in small ways. I started answering questions in class without hesitation. When a teacher asked me to read aloud, I no longer froze. My pronunciation was still far from perfect, but my voice carried certainty. Classmates who had once laughed now looked surprised, and sometimes impressed. One afternoon, our school organized a group discussion in English. The topic was simple: my dream job. In the past I would have stayed silent, hiding at the back. But this time I raised my hand and spoke. My dream job is to become a teacher, I said, my voice clear. I want to help children learn English easily, like I am learning now. English should not be scary. It should be fun. A few heads nodded. A teacher smiled. Some students whispered, "He speaks well." For the first time I felt pride without fear. Pride in my effort, in my journey, in the change I had made. Confidence also changed the way I practiced English. I no longer hid in my room. I read stories out loud in the courtyard, acted out dialogues with my friends, and even wrote small notes to practice grammar naturally. Each day my vocabulary grew, and my sentences became smoother. I started helping others too. Friends who struggled like I had once did began asking me for help. I showed them my notebook, my stories, my method. Watching them smile when they understood a sentence reminded me of my own first triumphs. By the end of that year, I could hold conversations easily. I could tell stories, describe events, and even give my opinions in English without hesitation. Confidence had opened doors that fear had closed. Looking back, I realized something important. Confidence is not about being perfect. It is about believing in your effort and trusting the process. Every mistake I made, every awkward sentence, every stumble had built this confidence. And with it, English was no longer a challenge. It was a bridge to opportunity. The mountain of English was still tall, but now I could climb it step by step, without fear, without hesitation. And as I climbed, I began to see new doors opening, opportunities I had never imagined. Chapter 8. The Road to Fluency. With confidence growing inside me, I began to notice something amazing. English was becoming easier every day. The small steps I had taken, the short stories, daily practice, speaking aloud, and learning from mistakes, were turning into real progress. I set a simple routine. Every morning I read a short story. Every afternoon I repeated sentences aloud, focusing on pronunciation. Every evening I wrote my own short stories, using the words I had learned. Slowly I began thinking in English, instead of translating from my native language. At first my sentences were simple. I go to school. The dog runs fast. But step by step they became longer, more natural. Today I went to the park, and I saw a boy playing with his dog. It was sunny, and everything felt happy. I also started listening more. English songs, podcasts, and even simple YouTube videos. At first I understood only a few words, but with repetition and patience I could catch the meaning, follow conversations, and even repeat phrases naturally. The biggest breakthrough came when I joined a local English club. Speaking with others, hearing new words, and sharing stories gave me real-life practice. I no longer felt shy. I could joke, ask questions, and explain my ideas. My mistakes were corrected gently, and I learned from them immediately. I realized something important. Fluency is not perfection. It is the ability to communicate clearly, understand others, and express yourself without fear. My goal was not to speak like a native overnight, but to connect, share, and grow every day. By the end of that year, my progress was clear. I could read stories independently. I could write paragraphs and small essays. I could converse naturally with teachers, friends, and even strangers. English had transformed from a wall into a tool of freedom and opportunity. Looking back, I understood a simple truth. Fluency is the result of persistence, daily practice, and the courage to make mistakes. Every story I read, every sentence I spoke, every word I wrote built this fluency brick by brick. For the first time in my life, I felt ready for bigger opportunities, to travel, to study, to work, and to dream without limits. English was no longer a mountain. It was a path stretching forward, and I was walking it confidently, step by step. Chapter 9. A New Door Opens. By now, English had become a part of my daily life. It was no longer a burden or a mountain. It was a key that unlocked doors I had never imagined. One day, an opportunity appeared that would change everything. Our school announced a summer exchange program in the city, where students could visit a big school, attend workshops, and practice English with native speakers. I had never dreamed of traveling outside my town, let alone participating in something like this. But this time I knew I could try. The application required an essay in English. I sat down at my desk, remembering all the stories I had read and all the words I had learned. I wrote slowly at first, then with confidence. Sentences flowed naturally. For the first time I trusted my own English. A week later I received the news. I was selected. I couldn't believe it. My heart raced. I felt proud, excited, and a little nervous, but mostly I felt grateful for the journey I had taken. During the program, everything was in English: classes, activities, conversations. At first I worried I would struggle, but I realized something important. I had been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. The stories I had read, the sentences I had spoken, the mistakes I had made, all of it had prepared me. I made friends quickly. I could share my ideas, tell stories, ask questions, and even make jokes. People listened. People understood. And for the first time I felt equal in a world that once seemed so distant. I also began to notice doors opening in other areas of life. Teachers praised my progress. Friends asked me for help. Opportunities to participate in debates, presentations, and workshops came my way. English had become a bridge, not just to knowledge, but to confidence, friendship, and adventure. That summer taught me a lesson I will never forget. English is not just a language. It is a key to the world. If you learn it patiently, practice it consistently, and embrace mistakes as lessons, it can unlock doors you never imagined. By the end of the program, I returned home with more than just improved English. I returned with confidence, curiosity, and dreams that were bigger than ever before. And I knew that this was just the beginning, because the more I learned, the more doors would continue to open. Chapter 10. Inspiring Others. By now, English had become a natural part of my life. I could read, write, and speak with confidence. But something else began to happen. I wanted to share my journey with others. Many of my friends still struggled like I had. They feared English, avoided speaking, and believed it was too difficult. I remembered the years of fear, embarrassment, and missed opportunities. I knew exactly how they felt, and I wanted to help them avoid the same struggles I had faced. I started small. I invited a few friends to my room after school and showed them my stories, my notebook, and my method. Don't memorize everything, I told them. Start with small stories. Repeat the sentences aloud. Speak, make mistakes, and don't be afraid. That's how English becomes easy. At first they were skeptical. Some laughed. Others said it was too simple to work. But slowly, as they followed my method, I began to see changes. One by one, my friends started reading short stories, acting out dialogues, and speaking with confidence. Their first mistakes were met with laughter, but soon laughter turned into smiles of accomplishment. I also started helping younger students. At the local library, I organized short storytelling sessions in English. Children who had never spoken a full sentence before began speaking with excitement. I watched their faces light up when they understood a new word, or could tell a story in their own words. The feeling was incredible. Helping others learn made my own English stronger. Teaching stories, explaining words, and listening to questions improved my fluency. And every time a friend or student succeeded, I felt a deep joy and pride. One day Sarah said to me, "Arif, look at what you've created. You're not just learning English, you're inspiring a community. You've turned your struggle into hope for others." Her words made me realize something important. Success is not just about achieving your own dreams, it's about lifting others along the way. From that moment, my journey became twofold. I was learning English, yes, but I was also creating a ripple effect, helping others discover that learning English can be simple, enjoyable, and empowering. I knew the final chapter of my story was coming, the chapter where English was no longer a barrier, but a bridge to my bright future. And I was ready. Chapter 11. A Bright Future. Years had passed since I first struggled with English. From trembling over simple sentences to confidently telling stories, my journey had been long, but every step had been worth it. By now, English was no longer a challenge. It was a part of who I had become. I could read books, watch films, write essays, and hold conversations effortlessly. But more than that, English had opened doors I had only dreamed of. I received an offer to study in a city university. My confidence and fluency allowed me to excel in interviews. I traveled to new places, met new people, and explored opportunities that once felt impossible. The world no longer seemed distant. It was within reach. Even more meaningful was the impact I could make on others. Many friends, younger students, and classmates had followed my method. I watched them grow, speak confidently, and achieve their own dreams. The spark that once lit in me now burned brightly in others. Sometimes I sat quietly and thought about that boy who once feared English. The boy who hid in the classroom, avoided reading aloud, and believed his dreams were impossible. That boy would not recognize the life I had built. And yet, I owed it all to the small steps, repeated every day, and the courage to face fear. English had taught me more than language. It had taught me patience, persistence, and self-belief. I realized that learning anything, not just English, follows the same rule. Take one step, practice consistently, embrace mistakes, and never give up. Now I dreamed bigger. I wanted to write books in English, teach others, and travel the world. I wanted to show that learning English easily and quickly is possible for everyone, if you believe, practice, and start with stories. Looking back, I smiled. My journey had transformed me completely. The mountain of English was no longer a wall. It had become a bridge to opportunity, confidence, and a bright future. And I knew this truth deep in my heart. The journey never ends. Every story, every sentence, every word learned opens a new door. English was not just a language. It was a key to life itself. And I held it proudly in my hands.